My family assumed I was broke until they tried to stick me with a $6,380 restaurant bill. Reddit stories. A public announcement turned a birthday dinner into a loyalty test I never agreed to take. Walking out forced everyone to confront a version of me they'd spent years ignoring. Hi, I'm Marcus, 38, and 3 months ago my entire family found out, very loudly and very expensively, that I am not the broke, underachieving disappointment they've spent my whole adult life assuming I am. The moment my sister's voice sliced across that 5-star restaurant, I knew the night was about to go nuclear. You're paying for everyone's meal. You got that promotion, right? Not a question. Not a request. An announcement. At a $440 per person restaurant she'd chosen specifically because the lighting made her diamonds sparkle. I was mid-bite, fork hovering like it was trying to escape. My wife Emma's hand slid onto mine under the table. My kids paused their $38 mac and cheese like they sensed a natural disaster forming. I didn't agree to anything, I said, calm but firm. Dad didn't even look up from his $85 steak. Stop being difficult. And there it was. The family motto. Not printed on a crest, but etched into my childhood. Stop being difficult. Meaning, stop having boundaries, stop questioning bad decisions, stop expecting to be treated like a human being. I smiled. That small, polite, quiet smile people mistake for compliance. I'll be right back. I stood, pushed in my chair, told Emma softly, "Get the kids' jackets," and walked toward the restroom, but veered straight to the maitre d's podium instead. "How many in your party, sir?" she asked pleasantly. "I just need to pay for 4 meals. Mine, my wife's, and my 2 kids." Her eyes flicked to my work boots, then to the black metal card I slid across the counter. The shift in her posture was almost funny, like she suddenly remembered that money doesn't always dress up. "Very good, sir. $1,760. I tipped 25%. "And the rest of the table?" she asked. "They'll handle their portion. Please bring them their bill after dessert." I said it with the exact tone Rachel uses when announcing things, as though she were queen of some kingdom built entirely of Botox and entitlement. 5 minutes later, my family and I were walking out into the cool October air. Emma was half laughing, half terrified. My son whispered, "Aunt Rachel's going to explode. She'll learn something important," I said. "Never spend someone else's money before they hand it to you." By the time the server dropped the remaining $6,380 check onto their linen-draped table, I was already pulling out of the parking lot. My phone began to ring, Rachel, then Mitchell, then Dad. I didn't answer a single one. Because here's the thing no one at that table knew. I wasn't the struggling mechanic they thought I was. I am a mechanic, sure. Oil under the nails, busted knuckles, work boots older than my nephew. But I also own Davidson's Auto Repair, and 3 other locations. 47 employees. $3. $2 million in revenue last year. I bring home nearly $500,000 annually. But I learned long ago that telling people the truth doesn't change who they've already decided you are. It just makes them resentful. They had written my story for me. That night, as those phones lit up like emergency beacons, I finally wrote my own. And walking out of that restaurant was the first chapter. 3 weeks before the restaurant disaster, I was elbow deep in a transmission, covered in grease, and humming along to the shop radio when my phone buzzed. "Rachel." Which is always less of a phone call and more of a royal decree. "Dad's turning 65 next month. We're doing dinner at Stellino's. Saturday the 18th. You'll be there. Not, can you come? Not, does that work for your schedule? Just orders. How many people?" I asked, wiping my hands on a rag. "Just family. Maybe 15. Dress decent." Translation: she wanted to show off. Still, I said yes, because despite everything, I love my father. The man was a union electrician his whole life, hardworking, stubborn, simple. And yes, he favored my older brother Mitchell. But favoritism is inherited like left-handedness. Dad never meant harm. He just bought the myth that the kid in the suit is always more successful than the kid in the coveralls. Mitchell. Stanford MBA. Corporate job in Seattle. Makes about $180,000 a year. He likes to say it casually, like he's surprised the rest of us haven't achieved such simple, reasonable success. Rachel, married to a dentist, lives in a McMansion she calls a starter home. Leases BMWs like their seasonal accessories. She once told me, while I was installing her new garbage disposal for free, "I wish you'd just let me help you find a career, Marcus. Something stable." I had to tighten the bolts on that disposal 3 times because my hands kept shaking. But that was the family dynamic. Mitchell the golden boy. Rachel the polished one. And me, the mechanic. The guy who never finished college. The one who makes do. They never asked about my work. Or my business. Or why I kept my truck despite being able to afford something newer. They simply decided what my life was and left it at that. So when Emma and I walked into Stellino's on the night of the dinner, and saw not 15 people but 20, Rachel's entire in-law clan included, I wasn't shocked. Just tired. "Surprise!" Rachel sang. "I thought it'd be nice to make it a real celebration." A real celebration meaning more witnesses to her social performance. Mitchell arrived late, expensive suit, expensive haircut, expensive ego. Dad looked uncomfortable in his one nice shirt. The kind of place where the bread costs $14 and tastes like guilt. Dinner was ridiculous. $75 pasta you needed a magnifying glass to see. A mac and cheese for my kids that cost more than a full tank of gas. But I played along. Small talk. Sips of water. Quiet smiles. Until dessert. That's when Rachel stood, tapped her wine glass, and nearly detonated the room. "Before dessert, a toast! Dad, you deserve this. Mitchell, thank you for flying out. And Marcus." She paused for dramatic effect. She does that. She thinks she's cinematic. "I heard you finally got that promotion to shop manager. Congratulations. So tonight, dinner's on you." Applause. Genuine applause. From people I had never even met before. "Such a generous gesture," crooned Craig's mother. "That's a man who takes care of his family." Someone else chimed in. I sat still as stone. I didn't get a promotion. I didn't agree to pay. And I certainly didn't volunteer $6,000 so Rachel could cosplay generosity. "I didn't agree to anything," I said. "Oh, Marcus, don't be modest," Rachel laughed. Then Dad, without even glancing at me. "Stop being difficult." The guilt grenade. Always effective on the youngest child. But not that night. Emma squeezed my arm. Under the table, my son and daughter looked at me with wide eyes. Waiting. So I stood, murmured, "Restroom," and walked away. Straight to the maitre d'. Straight to my decision. Straight to the best moment of my adult life. The maitre d' didn't blink when I told her I wanted to split the bill. Stellino's caters to wealthy people doing stupid things quietly, so my request barely counted as an event. "How many meals would you like to cover, sir?" "4," I said. "My wife, my 2 kids, and myself." She typed, glanced at the screen, and said, "That will be $1,760 including service charge." And that's when I made a decision I had been avoiding for years. I reached into my pocket, not for the battered wallet I used around my family, but for the slim metal one holding my American Express Centurion. The black card. The one with no limit. The one that costs $5,000 a year just to keep. The one my family didn't know existed because I'd very deliberately never given them an excuse to connect me with money. The maitre d's eyebrows lifted a fraction. Just enough to say, one of those people. "Please add a 25% gratuity," I said. She nodded gracefully. "And the remaining meals? They'll handle that themselves. Bring their check after dessert." There was a small, almost invisible pause. Not judgment, just recognition. She'd seen this play out before. A quiet rebellion in designer lighting. Of course, sir. I walked back toward the table, but not all the way. Just far enough to catch Emma's eye and tilt my head toward the exit. She stood immediately. Our kids grabbed their jackets like they were escaping a heist. Rachel spotted us halfway to the door. Marcus? Are you going to the restroom or Marcus? Where are you going? Home, I said lightly. Have a great night. I pushed open the heavy glass door and stepped into cool October air. It felt like something unclenched inside my chest for the first time in years. We loaded the kids into the truck. Emma buckled herself in, looked at me, and finally let out the laugh she'd been suppressing. You really did it, she said. They really asked for it. What do you think they'll do when the check comes? Call Mitchell, I said. Then call me. Then blame me. Then learn something. My son piped up from the back seat. Aunt Rachel's gonna explode. Probably, I said. Which is why we're leaving. We drove home. Quiet, peaceful. Like we'd stepped out of a tornado right before it touched down. But the moment we pulled into our driveway, my phone lit up. Rachel. I didn't answer. 30 seconds later, Mitchell. Ignored. Then Dad. Ignored again. 3 voicemails came back to back. Rachel's was mostly screeching about humiliation. Mitchell's was controlled indignation. Dad's was confusion dipped in disappointment. I didn't listen to any of them. Instead, I opened my laptop and checked the weekly numbers for my 4 shops. They were up. Again. It was a grounding reminder. My family had spent 2 decades thinking I was the underachiever. But while they were building images, resumes, and reputations, I'd been building something real. And that night, walking out of Stellino's wasn't just about refusing a bill. It was about refusing the role they'd written for me. The next morning, I grabbed Dad's birthday gift, a vintage tool set he'd wanted for years, and drove to his house. I already knew this was going to be the real fallout. And I had no idea just how deep the cracks in our family's foundation went, until he opened the door. Dad opened the door in his robe, holding a mug of coffee like it was the only stable thing left in his world. He looked tired, older somehow, as if the weight of being disappointed in me for 20 years had finally started disappointing him back. Marcus, he sighed. Not angry. Not welcoming. Just bracing. We brought your gift, I said. Kids are in the truck. He stepped aside. Same living room I grew up in. Same framed photos, Mitchell's Stanford graduation centered like a shrine. My high school picture was on a lower shelf behind a ceramic fish I'd made in 4th grade. Symbolic, really. Dad sat in his recliner. I stayed standing. Your sister's very upset, he began, which was almost funny in its predictability. If Rachel drove her car into an orphanage, Dad would start with, You know the streetlights there are confusing. I imagine she is, I said. She volunteered my money in front of strangers. She thought you got a promotion. She made up a promotion. Dad scratched his chin like he was negotiating with invisible lawyers. She said it was a misunderstanding. She announced I was paying. That's not misunderstanding, that's entitlement. Dad's eyes flicked up. You could have just paid. It was my birthday. There it was. The guilt anchoring. The subtle suggestion that my refusal to bankroll 20 people was a personal attack on his longevity. Dad, I said, keeping my voice calm, that bill was $6,380. Rachel invited 12 extra people, half strangers, to the most expensive restaurant in the city, then assigned the bill to me like she was choosing a volunteer tribute. He flinched. Your mother, she would have wanted the family together. Mom would have also wanted people to respect boundaries. He looked genuinely startled, as though the concept of me having boundaries was brand new information. When's the last time anyone helped me? I asked. When's the last time Mitchell asked about my job? Or Rachel asked how the kids were? Or you asked about my shop? Dad shifted. Your brother and sister have busy lives. So do I said. But nobody cares, because I'm just the mechanic. I hadn't planned to say it out loud. But once it surfaced, it hovered in the air between us like a truth he didn't want to look at directly. Dad swallowed, eyes softening for the first time in years. Is that really how you feel? I laughed. Not a happy laugh. More of a pressure release valve laugh. That's how I've felt for 15 years. He looked around at his own house, as though searching for the version of me he thought he'd raised. The one who would have quietly paid the bill, swallowed the insult, and shown up smiling next year. I don't understand what you want, he said. I want you to see me, I replied. Not the story you made up about me. Not the kid who failed college. Not the disappointment. Me. He looked down at his coffee, hands shaking slightly. Your mother saw you, he whispered. She always said I was too hard on you. I know, I said softly. She told me. That pierced him. Deep. Mom had been the only one who asked about my day. Who cared about the shop. Who didn't treat my life like a fallback plan. The silence between us stretched into something raw and honest. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. Your gift, it's in the hallway. Yeah. He nodded, stood slowly. Tell the kids I said thank you. We left without resolving anything. Without yelling. Without hugging. Just two men standing on opposite sides of a story neither of us had bothered to rewrite. For now. The real earthquake came later, 2 weeks, in fact, when Mitchell walked into my shop unannounced. And for the first time in our adult lives, he was speechless. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Danny, my lead tech, stuck his head into Bay 3. Boss, there's a guy out front asking for you. Looks like he got lost on his way to a TED Talk. Translation: someone in a button-up shirt with feelings of intellectual superiority. Mitchell. I wiped my hands, grabbed a rag, and headed toward the customer service counter. And there he was, my older brother, standing in the middle of my shop like he'd accidentally stepped into a biome he wasn't evolved for. He glanced around at the 12 service bays, the lifts, the diagnostic equipment, the employees constantly calling me boss. This place is bigger than I expected, he said, which was Mitchell speak, for I have severely underestimated you my entire life and I'm uncomfortable. What do you need? I asked. He swallowed. Can we talk somewhere private? I led him to my office, modest, practical, with a window overlooking the shop floor. Family photos. My kids' drawings. A Chamber of Commerce plaque. A mug that says World's Okayest Mechanic. Mitchell sat without being invited. Classic. Then he took a breath like he was about to disclose a terminal illness. Dad told me what you said, he began. About feeling like the family charity case. I didn't say I felt like it, I corrected. I said that's how I was treated. He nodded once. Tight. Awkward. Unpracticed, because Mitchell's used to explaining, not listening. Look, he said. I guess I never thought about it that way. No kidding. He ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair. You don't exactly share much, Marcus. I let out a short laugh. Why would I? Every time I talked about my life, you talked louder. He flinched. A real, visible flinch. Like a crack in his armor. His eyes drifted to the framed business licenses on my wall. Then to the whiteboard where my manager's schedules were laid out. Then to the monthly revenue chart pinned beside my desk. You own the place, he said. Not a question, an admission. 4 places, I said. He blinked. 4. Yep. How long? I bought the first when I was 22. He did the math. 16 years. 16 years of family dinners where he updated everyone on his salary hikes while I was quietly signing franchise contracts and expanding my payroll. Mitchell leaned back slowly. What's the yearly revenue? Healthy. More than I make? Significantly. He let out a long, shaky breath, like he just realized that for 2 decades he'd been lecturing the wrong brother about ambition. Rachel is going to lose her mind, he murmured. She doesn't need to know, I said. He frowned. Why not? Because this isn't about showing off. It never was. I'm not trying to win a family contest. I don't need her validation. I don't want her investment ideas. I don't want to be her next dental office motivational story. Mitchell stared at the desk. For a long time. Then softly, Marcus. I'm sorry. Not dramatic. Not performative. Just a man realizing he'd been blind in the exact direction he should have been looking. I didn't think I was hurting you, he said. That's the thing about privilege, I replied. You don't have to think about it. He blew out a breath and stood. Can we try again? You and me? Actually be brothers? I considered him. Really considered him. He wasn't malicious. Just conditioned. You spend your life being the golden child. You assume the spotlight is natural light. Maybe, I said. But it starts with treating me like an equal, not a project. He nodded, relief washing over him. Deal. He turned to leave, then glanced back at my shop, my world, one more time. This is impressive, Marcus. Thanks. After he left, I stood in the doorway of my office and watched my techs work. My people. My business. My life. For the first time ever, my brother had stepped into my world. And realized I had won. But the real shockwave came 2 weeks later, when Dad called. Not to lecture. Not to guilt trip. But to confess something I never expected to hear. Dad called on a Wednesday evening, right as I was finishing paperwork and trying to coax my printer into not dying a dramatic death. When his name popped up on my phone, I braced myself for one of 3 possible conversations. Another guilt monologue about family unity. A lecture disguised as concern. Rachel's thoughts, delivered through Dad like a disgruntled postal worker. But when I answered, his voice surprised me. Soft. Careful. Almost uncertain. Your brother told me, he said. I leaned back in my chair. Told you what? That you own multiple shops. Yep. A long silence. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. I didn't sigh or laugh or get angry. I just said the truth. Would you have believed me? Dad didn't answer. Not immediately. And that pause, just a quiet beat of honesty, told me everything. Finally, he said, voice low. Probably not. Not at first. Exactly. Another long exhale, one that felt like it carried 15 years of assumptions in it. Son, he said, I owe you an apology. I blinked. Stared at the wall. Wondered if this was a prank and Mitchell had hacked Dad's phone. I spent years focused on your brother, Dad continued. Because I thought he needed more guidance. You seemed content. I thought you didn't need me the same way. I needed you to see me, I said. That's all. Dad's breath hitched, just a little. Your mother saw you. She understood you. She told me I was too hard on you. I told her she was overprotective. He swallowed hard. She was right. I was wrong. I had no snark. No comeback. No witty emotional counterpunch. It was like hearing a heavy door open in a house you didn't realize had another room. We talked for an hour. Really talked. He asked about my staff. My business model. My expansion plans. My life. He actually listened. Not like someone waiting to speak, like someone discovering a story he should have been reading all along. He told me things too. Things about Mom. About how after she died, he didn't know how to connect with us without her. How he defaulted to the socially acceptable version of parenting. The son with the suit gets praise, the son with the toolbox gets nodded at. It didn't fix everything. Years don't rewind. But it was a start. A real one. We hung up on good terms. Calm terms. The kind of terms we'd never had before. And then, because the universe hates emotional momentum, Rachel entered the chat in the most Rachel way possible. A single text message. Mitchell says you own multiple shops. Is that true? I stared at it for a full minute before replying. Yes. Her response came 5 minutes later. Why didn't you tell anyone? I didn't respond. She didn't text again. 3 months passed without a word from her beyond obligatory holiday messages, which were so stiff they might as well have been written by a malfunctioning etiquette robot. But Christmas was approaching. And that's when everything shifted again. This time because of me. Because I wasn't playing their game anymore. I was inviting them into mine. 3 months after the restaurant fiasco, Rachel sent a group email proposing Christmas dinner. At, of course, another expensive restaurant. The kind where the chairs don't match and the plates look like they were designed by an architect having an identity crisis. Before anyone else could reply, I hit respond all. Emma and I are hosting this year. Dinner at 4 p.m., casual. Kids welcome. Bring a side dish. It was the politest possible way of saying, we're done performing in public for Rachel's self-esteem. Mitchell responded within minutes. We'll be there. What can we bring? Dad replied a few hours later. Looking forward to it, son. Rachel didn't respond for 3 days, which meant she was either calculating, spiraling, or Googling the phrase how to regain dominance in family dynamics. When she finally replied, it was exactly what I expected. I suppose we can make it work. The funniest part? She had never seen my house. Not once. Because in her mind, I lived in some modest mechanic's hut assembled from spare tires and crushed dreams. Christmas Eve arrived. Emma and I prepped all morning: prime rib, potatoes, roasted vegetables, a gravy that fought Emma every step of the way. It was imperfect. And warm. And real. The house smelled incredible. Our kids ran around with the kind of joy only sugar-scented air can produce. Dad arrived first. He stepped inside, and stopped. This is really nice, son, he said quietly. You did the remodel yourself? Most of it. He ran a hand along the banister like he was touching my adulthood for the first time. Mitchell and Jennifer showed up next with their kids. The kids disappeared to the basement immediately, forming their own chaotic ecosystem. Then Rachel and Craig arrived. And I swear, the first thing she did was silently calculate the square footage. How long have you lived here? She asked, scanning the living room like she expected to find hidden clues. 7 years, I said. I didn't know you could afford this. You never asked? She blinked, caught off guard. People like Rachel don't handle unexpected honesty well. It's like splashing water on a cat. Dinner was chaotic in the perfect way. The prime rib was slightly overcooked. Emma's gravy was lumpy. The kids dropped at least 3 rolls on the floor. Mitchell spilled wine on his shirt and swore loudly before remembering Dad was present. It was human. It was messy. It was ours. After dinner, the kids opened presents. The adults had coffee and pie. Conversations overlapped instead of being curated. And then Rachel, fidgeting, stiff, uncomfortable in the warmth, finally said the thing she'd been holding back all night. I looked up your business online. Of course she did. I saw the 4 locations. The awards. 47 employees. Yep, I said. She stared at me like I'd personally betrayed the narrative she'd written. Why didn't you tell us? The room went quiet. Even the kids paused their war downstairs. Because, I said evenly, I didn't need to prove anything. That's not fair. She snapped. Fair? I said. You spent 15 years suggesting I needed career help. Offering to introduce me to people hiring for entry-level positions. Meanwhile, I was signing payroll checks, negotiating leases, and running a multi-million-dollar operation. Rachel's face flushed. Craig stared at his hands. Mitchell stared at his coffee. Dad stared at me. If you had just told us. Rachel tried again. If I told you, I said, you would have asked for money. Or discounts. Or investments. Or bragging rights. The whole point was building something without needing anyone's permission or applause. Her mouth pressed into a thin line. "I think we should go," she said finally. Of course she should. When she left, the air in the house felt lighter. Not happier, just relieved. Like a room where someone finally turned off a noise you didn't know was humming. After they were gone, Mitchell looked over at me. "For what it's worth," he said, "you're right. We would have asked for money." I nodded. "I know. And I get why you kept it quiet." Dad cleared his throat like he had something stuck in it, emotion, or maybe pride. "Your mother would be proud," he said. Then, after a beat, "I'm proud too. I should have said it years ago." It landed softly, like a blanket being draped over cold shoulders. Later that night, when the house was quiet and the table finally clean, Emma asked, "Do you think Rachel will come around?" "I don't care anymore," I said. "I'm done chasing people who only see what they want to see." She kissed me. "I'm proud of you." "I did it for the kids," I said. "I want them to know you don't take disrespect just because it comes from family." That night was the first time I felt free. But freedom isn't the end of a story. It's the beginning of choosing what comes next. And that choice hit me 6 months later, sitting in my office, watching my crew work, finally understanding what walking out of that restaurant really meant. Hi, it's still Marcus, still 38, still a mechanic, still the guy who walked out of a $6,380 family meltdown and accidentally kickstarted a full-blown generational shift. 6 months after Christmas, something strange happened. My shop felt different. Not quieter. Not busier. Just mine in a way it had never felt before. Maybe because for the first time in my life, I wasn't hiding it. Not apologizing for it. Not shrinking myself to fit the version of me my family preferred. That afternoon, I was in my office watching my crew finish up a rush of end-of-day jobs, tires squeaking over concrete, tools clinking, someone yelling across the bays asking who stole their socket wrench again, when I realized how much lighter life felt without the constant pressure of performing the role they assigned me. Jake wandered into my office after school, still wearing his backpack, chewing a granola bar like it owed him money. "Dad," he said, sitting on the edge of my desk, "at school we had to draw what our parents do for work." "Oh yeah?" I said. "What did you draw?" "You," he said. "But with, like, cooler hair. And sunglasses." "Mechanics wear sunglasses?" "No," he said. "But superheroes do." I choked on absolutely nothing at all. Kids say things so casually, like emotional grenades with the pins pre-pulled. "Why superhero?" I asked. He shrugged, swinging his legs. "Because you fix everything. And you don't let people be mean to you. Or to us. I think that's what superheroes do." And just like that, the entire restaurant incident, Rachel's tantrum, years of being underestimated, they all clicked into place. I wasn't trying to teach my family anything that night. I was teaching my kids. You don't let people treat you like you're small. You don't let people take advantage because they're family. You don't set yourself on fire to keep someone else's ego warm. Jake hopped off the desk and ran back toward the shop floor, leaving me with a heart that felt 3 sizes too big for my ribs. Then my phone buzzed. "Dad," I answered. "Hey son," he said. "I'm making meatloaf. You and the kids want to come for dinner?" Simple. Casual. No tension. No guilt. "Yeah," I said. "We'd like that." "Good," he said. "And bring your tools." The dryer's making a noise like it's trying to escape the house. There he was. My dad. Not the man who compared me to Mitchell. Not the man who believed Rachel's version of me. Just my father. The one who told me stories about Mom. Who asked about my shop now. Who wanted to spend time with my kids. That's when I realized something. Family doesn't heal in big speeches. It heals in small invitations. In meatloaf dinners. Dryer repairs. Regular phone calls. sitting together without pretending. And yeah, Rachel still kept her distance. But that was her choice now, not my problem. I'd spent too many years trying to earn a relationship with someone who only valued me to the extent that I could be useful or silent. But Dad and Mitchell? They were trying. And trying is more than I ever thought I'd get. That night, as I closed up the shop, I flipped off the lights one by one and looked across the space I'd built. The one nobody in my family cared to ask about for years. It was peaceful, bright, full of the hum of a life I made on my own terms. And for the first time in a long, long time, I was excited about what came next. A week after Dad's meatloaf dinner, something happened that would have sent old me into a panic spiral. Rachel showed up at my shop. No warning. No text. No call. Just walked through the bay doors like she was entering a courtroom where she planned to represent herself. Every mechanic in the room froze. Not because they knew who she was, but because she had the unmistakable vibe of a woman who begins emails with, "As per my last message." She scanned the shop like she expected someone to hand her a menu. "Marcus," she said in that sharp, clipped tone she uses when she's pretending she isn't angry. I wiped my hands on a rag and braced myself. 6 months of silence from Rachel meant she'd either come to fight, or ask for a favor. Statistically, Rachel asked for favors in the tone of someone issuing subpoenas. "What's up?" I said. She hesitated. That alone was suspicious. "I need your help," she finally said. There it was. The sentence I'd been waiting my entire adult life to hear, not because I wanted power over her, but because I knew it meant something had cracked in her world. "What kind of help?" I asked carefully. She looked around the shop again, like she was afraid the tools were judging her. "It's Craig," she said. "His dental practice isn't doing well." I blinked. Rachel admitting anything in her life wasn't flourishing was like seeing a solar eclipse. You know it's rare and possibly dangerous. "What happened?" I asked. She sighed, sat down on a rolling stool, then immediately made a face because the seat had, God forbid, some grease on it. "There's a new chain dentistry office that opened 2 blocks away. They're undercutting his prices, offering free whitening, weekend hours." His numbers dropped by almost 40%. She glanced at me like she expected judgment. "And why are you telling me this?" "Because," she said, her voice tightening, "you run successful businesses. Multiple. And I don't know how to fix this." Her hands twisted in her lap. I had never seen Rachel's hands nervous. Ever. Those hands usually pointed. Directed. Accused. Now they fidgeted. "Why not ask Mitchell?" I said. Her laugh was short and humorless. "Mitchell told us to cut expenses and optimize internal synergy. Craig thought synergy was a dental instrument." I tried not to smile. I really did. "So you came to me?" I said. She lifted her chin, defensive. "Yes. You clearly know something about running things well." It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest she'd ever come to respect. "Okay," I said. "I'll take a look. But Rachel, if I help, you follow the plan. No improvising. No dismissing what you don't want to hear." She nodded too quickly. "Yes, yes, of course." I tilted my head. "Are you sure? Because you've spent half your life acting like I barely qualified to tighten the bolts on your toaster." Her throat bobbed. "I was wrong," she said quietly. "I didn't understand what you actually built. Or who you are." It wasn't quite the apology she owed me. But it was an apology she wasn't capable of giving 6 months ago. "Progress is messy." "Fine," I said. "Let's go sit in my office. I'll pull up some models and numbers." She hesitated again, softer this time. "Marcus?" "Yeah? Thank you. For not laughing at me." I stared at her for a beat. The woman who once treated me like a social liability was now sitting in my world, looking very small and very human. "I'm not here to humiliate you," I said. I just want everything to stop being a competition. Rachel exhaled, relief mixed with something like regret. And for the first time in our entire lives, we walked into a room together without one of us leading the way. We sat in my office, me in my usual chair, Rachel perched on the edge of her seat like the cushion might bite her. She scanned the room with that strange mix of discomfort and curiosity you only see when someone realizes their assumptions have just been evicted. Family photos on the wall. Certificates. A framed newspaper clipping about my first shop. A whiteboard full of schedules and projections. My kids' drawings taped proudly beside a blueprint of a new lift installation. It was a living, breathing space. Mine. This is different from what I expected, she finally said. Expected what? I asked, opening my laptop. She hesitated. I don't know. A folding table? Fluorescent lights. A calendar with girls in bikinis leaning on mufflers. I snorted. That's a stereotype, Rachel. And also illegal for workplaces now. She flushed, fiddling with her bracelet. I didn't mean. You did, I said gently. But it's fine. That's the version of me you've had in your head for years. She closed her mouth and seemed to absorb that. I pulled up a few spreadsheets, revenue breakdowns, expansion models. Then I rotated the screen so she could see. Her eyes widened as lines and charts filled the monitor. You track all this? She asked. No, I said dryly. I draw it in the dirt outside with a stick. She shot me a look that was half annoyed, half embarrassed. Marcus, please. I'm trying. I softened. Yeah. I know. Okay, let's start with Craig's practice. What's the biggest problem? The new chain practice, she said. They're undercutting him by a lot. Like a lot. That's not the real problem, I said. She blinked. It's not. Nope. Competing on price is a losing game if you're a small independent business. You'll never beat a national chain with corporate funding. The real problem is that Craig hasn't differentiated himself. She stared at me. Meaning? Meaning he looks exactly like them, just more expensive. She sat back, absorbing it. I continued. He needs a niche. Something only he does. Specialty cosmetic services. Sedation dentistry. Emergency after-hours appointments. Flexible payment plans. Something that makes people choose him, not a coupon. Her eyes flicked to the whiteboard where I'd started sketching a rough model. This is complicated. Running a business is complicated, I said. Harder than having someone else sign your paycheck. She winced. I pretended not to notice. So what do we do? She asked, voice small. We? I repeated. She looked down at her hands. Marcus. I can't fix this alone. And Craig, he's good at teeth, not business. And you're good at pretending everything is fine until it's not. I finished for her. She swallowed. Hard. That's fair, she whispered. I leaned back. Okay. Then we start simple. I'll help you design a repositioning strategy. But Rachel, this only works if you listen. No ego. No dismissing things because they don't match your idea of what success looks like. She nodded slowly. I will. And no treating me like the family handyman who wandered into a boardroom on accident. A faint, shaky smile tugged at her mouth. I deserve that. Yeah, I said. You do. We spent the next hour dissecting Craig's numbers, comparing local markets, analyzing customer retention rates. Rachel asked questions, real ones. Listened, actually listened. Took notes as if she were trying to catch up on an entire education she didn't know she'd missed. It wasn't perfect. She still flinched whenever I said something blunt. Still had moments where her old reflexes tried to jump out. But every time, she caught herself. That was the surprising part. She wanted to understand. At one point, she looked up at the revenue graph on the screen, eyebrows knitted. You built all this, she said quietly. From nothing. I nodded. And we never saw it. You didn't want to see it, I said. It didn't fit the family narrative. She didn't argue this time. Instead, she whispered, I'm sorry. Not dramatic. Not defensive. Not hedged. Just real. I nodded once. Thank you. We closed the laptop. She stood, smoothing her blouse, a nervous tick, not an arrogant one this time. Marcus? She said, pausing in the doorway. Yeah? You're really good at this. I shrugged. Been doing it a long time. No, she said. I mean, you're good with people. With me? I raised an eyebrow. That's questionable. A genuine laugh escaped her. Quiet. Unpolished. Human. For the first time in our lives, Rachel didn't leave the room first. We walked out together. Side by side. And that felt like the beginning of something I never expected. A version of our family where everyone finally learns how to see each other.